really, these are housing grants. They're not loans. They provide 16% of the purchase cost. Okay, now I went. Is somebody else operating, or am I?
I think we're both trying to do it.
Okay. Okay. So it provides 16% of the purchase cost up to $150,000 with buyer contribution of 4%, which equates to a 20% down payment to assist folks to get into housing. The goal here is really to create a secondary market for local workers, local worker housing in the Tahoe area. And so the idea here is that our board is seeing housing as really infrastructure, right? So it's an investment into the infrastructure in the region to house our local workers. The deed runs with the land for 55 years, and then it renews with each transaction and sale. There are no appreciation caps, and then eligibility requirements are that it's for local workers working 30 hours per week on average within the Tahoe-Truckee Unified School District geographical boundary. Okay, I'm gonna let you go. Next slide. So just to talk a little bit about the status, this launched in July of 2021. It's been a little bit of a slow start because of the housing market. I think everybody that lives up here understands what we've been dealing with in terms of the cost of housing. We do have 33 approved applicants on the list. And then 2 applications have closed. So we have two sales that have gone to local workers, which is great. And then 1 right now is in escrow. So we had higher aspirations and goals on this program. We certainly wanted to get more folks into housing. It's just been a challenge, but we are happy to report that we've got 3 dedicated units to worker housing. We did provide some updates to the board in June in 2022, which actually helped to secure the 3. So what we did is we sort of evaluated the program over the first year and realized we needed to make some tweaks. And so what we did in June of 2022 was to ask the board to remove the AMI restrictions, so the area median income restrictions were removed. We're focused on just the local worker restrictions. So remove the AMI and just the units are now restricted just for the folks that you have to, show that you're living and working in the area. We also removed the previous homeowner exclusion. So there was an exclusion that initially in the guidelines that said if you already owned a home, you couldn't use this program moving forward. So we removed that. We refined occupancy criteria and clarified the process, the application process, and an increase in penalties. We are also returning to our board this February 14th this year to request additional funding, really in preparation for what we think is going to be that sort of spring housing market. Hopefully there's more units that come online. Next slide. So real quick, I'll just touch on what we did here. So again, when we removed the area median income restrictions, we relied on the local worker requirements. It allows more local worker households to be eligible for the program. So we feel like that, just doing that really helped to secure the 3 units that we've got right now. Next slide. And then again, we removed the previous homeowner exclusion. This allows current homeowners or those who have owned a home in the last 12 months to be eligible. We believe it allows more local worker households to qualify and then enables more local workers to live closer to work. And then it also assists in recruitments for skilled workers from outside of the area. So, any employer in the area knows if you're trying to, recruit talent, it's good to have programs like this in place that will help bring folks to the region. Next slide. And then we refined occupancy criteria. So the criteria now is if you can demonstrate full-time employment through pay stubs, demonstrating 30 hours of work per week, employer certification, so your employer can certify you, then yearly revenue that demonstrates full-time employment. Next slide, thanks. And then just some kind of cleanups to the process. We added some language to clarify the resale process and internal processing of applications. So this is really, when we're implementing and going through the process, there were some areas that we were tracking that were a little bit troublesome. So we cleaned that up. We increased the program termination fee from 3% to 10% if the program participant breaks the terms of the agreement. So kind of tightened that up a little bit. And then allowed non-occupant co-borrowers to participate. Next slide. This just shows you how to apply. So the first thing you do is submit a buyer application, and then that's reviewed by our housing team. Our housing team, we do have folks in Auburn that help with this program. It's generally run out of the Tahoe office, but we do have some folks. So if you are going through the program, you'll know that you'll be working with some people in Auburn as well. We do a pre-approval from Placer County, so that's, again, the folks in Auburn and Tahoe working together with the applicant to get them approved. And then they go on to a list. So like I noted earlier, we've got 33 folks on the list. Those are folks that have pre-qualified and they're, actively searching for housing. We hope to get them through this program, but they sort of wait until they find housing. So the next is to submit a property application. Once they've identified a unit that they want to purchase, and then we can move through the program and get the funds approved. So the fourth step is approving the funds, and then the fifth step is the transfer of funds. We kind of finalize that escrow process. So that's the website. It's a really great program. We hope to secure more units this year with the changes to the guidelines and then also additional funding. So with that, I'm going to turn it over, next slide, to Emily to talk about some other programs and projects that we are doing at Placer.
Thank you, Emily Setzer, planner with Placer County. I am going to talk about our Lease to Locals program, which we use local company, Landing Locals, to help us out with that. And it is a cash incentive to East Placer homeowners who rent to local workers. So it's really targeted at homes that have not been used as long-term rentals in the past year. So we're trying to kind of create that culture shift and teach people that there are benefits to renting long-term again. So we're trying to convert those vacation homes or short-term rentals to those long-term rentals. To qualify for a property owner to get those incentives, they would have to rent to a household where at least half of the adult tenants are locally employed within that our school district geographical boundary. And the program began this past summer, and it's been really successful so far. Thank you. Our goals with this program were to convert existing housing stock to new long-term rentals, really to provide property owners those cash incentives in order to incentivize them to do long-term rentals, and to really allow us, local government, to work quickly and efficiently, which is not always our forte, as you probably know. So we're really trying to identify missing middle housing needs, and we're really thankful that companies like Landing Locals have come along and tried to work with us and think of creative ways to utilize that existing housing stock. Thank you. So right now our property owner incentives go up to $24,000. So it's pretty incentivizing for our property owner. So if it's a long-term lease or a seasonal lease, the prices that they will, or the subsidies that they will get will be different. And it also varies depending on how many local employees they have renting the home. So we've seen that to be pretty successful so far. Next slide, please. We've had 267 total leads. And so far, we have 10 properties in the process of qualification. We have 3 currently screening. We've awarded 17 grants so far. So far, just since August, so barely half a year. We've housed 40 people through this program, 35 bedrooms. The average property rent was under $2,500 per month. And the total incentive cost that we've allocated or plan to allocate here is $177,000. The property owner gets paid at the beginning when they sign the contract, and then at the end of the term as well. And we had our website there, but it's linked from our other site too. So I'll just go over some other projects and updates that we're working on that are housing related as well. So we're trying, as Crystal said, with the Workforce Housing Preservation Program and then our Lease to Locals program, we're really trying to utilize that existing housing stock because that's the quickest way to secure housing for our local workers. But additionally, we're also trying to get housing constructed. So Hopkins Village, right across the street here, is a 40-unit for sale development for households that earn 180% or less of area median income, and we have those numbers on our website. Units are still available for purchase. They are selling, and it's pretty exciting to see forward progress on that project. Right across the street from that project is a rental development that just opened recently, and it is 56 affordable rental units, and I just found out they are all fully leased. So that's pretty cool. Dollar Creek Crossing is a project we're working on just north of Tahoe City. The county purchased 11 acres there at Dollar Hill. We're working in the evaluation and feasibility phase, really trying to figure out what fits on that site, what fits in with the community character, and do the environmental review for that site. So we're planning right now for up to 150 units that would be combination of rental and for sale. So that's really kind of the first project in this area that is both rental and for sale for local workers. We did win $2.5 million in permanent local housing allocation grant funding for that project. So that one's taken a while, but we are moving forward on that one. Next slide, thanks. Just some quick highlights on some regulatory updates too. Really overall, we're trying kind of every single way to facilitate housing. We've passed a single room occupancy amendment a couple years ago. That's really kind of a dorm style housing development that's now allowed. We had a countywide zoning ordinance amendment that went through and got approved this past summer. That allows tiny houses countywide and tiny house developments, which was a big first for us. We are also working on the Tahoe Basin Area Plan updates right now. We've brought those forward to our Planning Commission and to TRPA and hope to get those approved this spring. And they're focused on really improving the economic sustainability of our town centers to make it easier for small businesses and hotel products to come in and get developed. And there also is a huge component of trying to streamline achievable housing, so that local worker housing, and remove the barriers and the processing and entitlement barriers that make it harder to build right now. And then we are coordinating really closely with our partners over at the Lake, TRPA. They have a group kind of formed called the Stakeholder Living Working Group. It meets a few times a year, and they are focused on evaluating the TRPA code to see what processes they can change to make it easier to build housing at the lake. So they've made a few updates so far, like pertaining to ADUs, for example, accessory dwelling units, which have been really helpful. So we are working with them on potential updates to the definition of achievable housing, probably removing that income limit altogether and relying on that local worker requirement, and then increasing flexibility in height, density, and coverage, and mitigation fees, things that every developer will say makes it really hard to build local worker housing. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation. So we'll be around at the end to answer questions. Our website that has a link to everything on there is placer.ca.gov/Tahoe housing. Thanks.
Thank you to Emily and Crystal from Placer County. Good of you to be here today. And next, we're going to hear from Lynn Baumgartner, Town of Truckee, and we're going to talk about what the town is up to. So let's give a warm round of applause to Lynn. It's all yours. I'll give you a signal when it's getting close.
Hi, everyone. As we all know, the Truckee North Tahoe region is experiencing a significant shortage of rental and for sale housing affordable to our local workforce. So the town is proactively working to address this shortage on numerous fronts, including supporting the development of income-restricted affordable housing, offering workforce rental grants to property owners, supporting the development of accessory dwelling units, and the recent launch of the Truckee Home Access Program. And for the town, revenue to support these programs come from the Town General Fund, Measure K, and grants. Next slide, please. So we have very similar programs to Placer County, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. But first up, Lease to Locals aims to unlock the existing housing stock for the local workforce, includes a set of incentives for owners to transition from short-term rentals or not renting at all to long-term leases with local employees. Qualifying homeowners can receive grants up to $18,000 and free tenant matching. And the town partners with Landing Locals to market and administer this program. Next slide, please. So if you're a property owner that is interested in the program, Landing Locals works with the homeowners to guide them through the process of qualifying for the grant, listing the property on the Landing Locals site, screening tenants, and securing a qualified set of tenants. Ultimately, the homeowners choose the tenants, not Landing Locals. That's been some confusion lately. So if you are a homeowner who's interested, you get to select your tenants. And the lease agreement is between the homeowner and the tenant. So here's some basic facts about how it works and the home qualification. It has to be located within the town of Truckee limits, has to have all its required building permits in place, and it must be willing to rent to local income qualified employees for a lease term of 5 to 12 months or longer. And it's kind of small to see, but for the town of Truckee, the grant goes up to $18,000 for qualifying tenants and a long-term lease. Next slide, please. So if you're interested in renting your property through Lease to Locals, go to landinglocals.com/Truckee and fill out the form, and Landing Locals will be in touch. Next slide, please. So if you are a renter looking for housing, or you're an employer with potential employees looking for housing, the best way to use this program is to go to the landinglocals.com/Truckee and have the renters create a renter profile, includes information like household size, budget, and employment information used to match. Once they're signed up, you'll receive rental listings before they go live on the website directly from Landing Locals. You'll get matched with a homeowner and see the home. And then fill out an application, so a rental application to renters who rent with the homeowner. Landing does a comprehensive tenant screening, and the homeowner, again, makes the final selection. Finally, the tenants will sign a lease, and once the lease is signed, Landing Locals coordinates the lease signing and move-in details with both parties. And in Truckee, our income qualification is based on the average of the household income, which is no more than $103,350 per person, and 50% of the adults over 18 need to work at least 20 hours a week for an employer located within the boundaries of the TTUSD. Next slide, please. So if you are a local business that's struggling to hire employees, we would love for you to partner with Lease to Locals to help your employees find housing. You can share the information about the Lease to Locals program with your employees and applicants, and you can also partner with Landing Locals to help advertise the program. So if you have a help wanted sign on your door, you could hang a Lease to Locals informational flyer next to it. There are other ways you could partner with Landing Locals as a business. So if you're interested, you can email hello@landinglocals.com or call that phone number there. If you just Google Landing Locals, all their contact information is on the website. Next slide, please. So next up, we have the Truckee Home Access Program, which is very similar to the WIP program that it was presented about a few minutes ago. So the Truckee Home Access Program was created to address the affordable housing issues faced by the local workforce. It's a challenge for local buyers to find and finance a home for sale because Truckee's housing costs are high, funding assistance is limited, and over 50% of our housing units are used as second homes. The THAP program is just one solution to preserve and protect housing for the Truckee area workforce. So this new program broadens the scope of the housing programs to include a higher area median income limit and increase home ownership opportunities. So excitingly, we have our first house in THAP under escrow. A local employee from the hospital is in escrow right now through the program. So we're very excited about how quickly this program has taken off. Already on my next slide. So the Truckee Home Access Program preserves, produces, and protects homes to create places for people who work full-time in the Truckee region to live locally. It pays buyers, sellers, businesses, and developers to reserve homes for income-qualified local workers using a 55-year deed restriction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between the Truckee Home Access Program and Placer's program. And one of those ways is that we have opportunities for the sellers, businesses, and developers to participate. So we have some specific goals of the THAP program. Our first goal is to increase the percentage of total housing stock that's deed restricted in the town of Truckee. Our goal is to increase to 10% of our housing units by 2032, so about 1,500 units. The second goal is to expand the deed restriction program to include income levels up to 245% AMI. So that is a difference between us and WIP. We do still have an area median income limit, but it's pretty high. It's for a family of 4, it's about $241,000 for a household of 4. And the third goal of the THAP program is to include more for sale product. Currently, the majority of the deed restricted housing in Truckee is for rent apartments. Next slide, please. So THAP benefits the entire community by ensuring housing opportunities are exclusively reserved for the local workforce. I'm mainly going to focus on buyers and sellers, but there, like again, I said, we have opportunities for local businesses and developers, and I'll tell you about that at the very end. So buyers in the Truckee Home Access Program, again, can receive compensation in exchange for a local worker deed restriction that they sign, and it, again, is not a loan. And you can use the compensation for a number of things. It doesn't have to be used for down payment assistance. It can be used to, it can be used for the down payment, but it can also be used to buy down interest rates or be saved for future home renovations. Sellers can use the Truckee Home Access Program, but to ensure their homes are sold to a local workforce for local workers for a more affordable price while receiving the full appraised value with funding from THAP. So you have a house that's worth X amount of dollars, you get 16% of that. Dang it, I forgot the slide that had a chart on it. But anyway, so you can sell your home for 16% less than the appraised value. So a local worker is more likely to be able to afford it and use the money from the Truckee Home Access Program to make up the gap in between those amounts. So you can also save time and marketing costs by sharing your listing through THAP buyers and potentially reduced sales cost. Next slide, please. So the THAP compensation is either for the buyer or the seller. Can't double dip and get money on both ends. So it's up to 16% of maximum appraised value, up to $150,000. We do have a maximum home purchase price in the program, so the house has to be at $937,500 or below. No worries. So again, this is not a loan. It's repaid only if the owner defaults on the THAP restrictions with 10% interest per year, and the payment is received at title. And for sellers, it's a payment in exchange for the buyer signing the deed restrictions. So again, it's up to 16% of maximum appraised value with a maximum home purchase price of $937,500. Next slide, please. So just a few details about the deed restriction in the Truckee Home Access Program. It's 55 years. We have a full-time occupancy requirement for the resident. The house must be sold to an eligible applicant. We don't have any local employment or income limits after purchase. So if a person purchases the house through the Truckee Home Access Program and 5 years down the line gets a remote job, they can still remain in the house. But when the house is sold, it must be sold to someone who meets the program qualifications. We do permit long-term renting in certain situations with approval by the town, but we do not allow short-term rentals or B&B. And we don't limit the resale price, so there's no appreciation cap, but at resale, there is kind of an artificial cap based on the income limits for the buyer because you're selling to someone who also must meet the income limits. So next slide, please. As far as the buyer and property eligibility requirements, at least one household member who works or is self-employed full-time within the TTUSD geographical boundary. The buyer must be able to obtain primary mortgage financing, and everyone has to be on the loan that lives in the house. We don't allow co-signers. The home must be within the town of Truckee limits with a value of $937,500 or less without any code violations. But it can be a townhome, a mobile home, a single family home. There's a lot of room there. The buyer cannot have liquid assets that exceed 30% value of the home, not counting retirement accounts. And the total gross household income must not exceed 245% AMI, and they're the current AMI for Nevada County in 2022. And the gross household income is all adults in the home that aren't full-time students. So if you have a parent living with you, roommates, we do take that all into account when calculating the gross income. So the application process, the buyer households have the most complicated process. The step one is attending a program education workshop, and we do have more workshops coming up, and I'm going to show the dates in a little bit. They'll submit a buyer application and supporting document. We currently have had 10 applicants, with one, as I said, under escrow. One was not approved, and then the other 8 at this point have either been approved or are in the approval process. So if you are approved from the program, you get conditional program approval, which is valid for 9 months with a possible extension to shop for a home. And at that point, funds are not reserved. You're approved from the program, but we're not reserving funds. Step 3, you find a house to buy. It is within the Truckee limits. It meets the price qualifications, no code violations. You'll submit a property application, and within 3 days of executing the purchase contract, you'll get final program approval. So we recommend, while you're shopping for the house within the program, if you find something you're interested, reach out to the Truckee Home Access Program and make sure that we do still have funds available. If you're a seller who's interested in selling your house through the Truckee Home Access Program, we encourage you to contact the administrator, and we'll have the contact information shortly and we'll walk you through that process. Next slide, please. So if you are a buyer or know a buyer who's interested, this is kind of the process. Attend a workshop, review the guidelines and documents that are all online, get a mortgage pre-qualification letter that is required to apply to the program, apply online with the application and all your documents, and then finally submit a property application when you're in contract to purchase a home. Next. So we have upcoming workshops. Here are the dates. They're going to be on the website, and with sign-up links. They are live, but they're all virtual. If you're not able to attend one of these workshops, we do have a recording available, but we'd highly recommend that you attend a workshop because you can ask questions. Next slide, please. So if you are a local business or developer, you can participate in the Truckee Home Access Program as well. It's a very individualized process for local businesses and developers, so please reach out to our email address there, thap@townoftruckee.com, or visit our website to learn more. So we'd really love to discuss it in detail if you are a local business or developer interested in participating. Next slide. So I threw one more in here at the end. We have a brand new program that was just approved by council last week. It's the short-term rental workforce housing token pilot program. We've been calling it the token program. It's the newest housing program at the town. It's a new and innovative approach to workforce housing creation. The token program provides an opportunity for an interested program participant, like a property manager, developer, or local business, to propose creating one or more deed-restricted workforce housing units in exchange for a specific number of tokens that are redeemable for a transient occupancy registration certificate. So it's similar to the THAP program, but instead of being paid money, you'll get an opportunity to get some number of short-term rental occupancy certificates, which, as many of you probably know, are limited in the town of Truckee. So we have a small pool that are specifically set aside for this program in exchange for creating workforce housing. So Town Council just approved the program framework and directed staff to create program guidelines and an RFP. We plan to bring the guidelines and the request for proposals to council in late February. Stay tuned for more information. If you want to learn more about this program, please reach out to housing@townoftruckee.com. And there's my contact information. There's a lot of information on our housing website. We have some more programs like with ADUs. And so I highly recommend that you visit our website and reach out if you have any questions on our specific projects.
Thank you, Lynn. I have a question for you. Do you do any auctioneering kind of volunteering things? Somewhere Porter's nervous, Raven's nervous. Very good job. Thank you for buying us back some time. And now I'd like to bring up Mike Dent from Nevada County. Mike is the Director of Child Support and Housing and Community Services, and he'll give us a brief update what's going on in Nevada County. Let's give him a warm round of applause.
See, wanted to bring a little bit of sunshine from the lowlands. So that's my dog Rosie taking a nap in the flowers. The days are getting longer, people. It's going to be great. Am I driving this or okay? This is going to be good. Why do I only get 5 minutes? Hey, thanks for giving me 5 minutes. And I got 10 minutes. It's the county's jurisdiction. You know, there's the town has most of the developable property here in the eastern side of the county. So like down payment assistance, that's a program I run. Well, until it was suspended by HUD. The max house is $425,000 that somebody can use. The purchase price can be for about $427,000. You guys haven't seen that in 10, 15 years. So most of the deals have to be in county jurisdiction and also something affordable, which has been a topic. I've been doing this, been with the county for 28 years, been doing this for about 5 years. And I've always looked to Truckee and Eastern, specifically the town of Truckee. No dig on Placer, love you guys. But there's so many thoughtful programs up here. Our board is just going to start digesting Missing Middle here in a couple weeks when Emily Vitas and I, we got 90 minutes with them. And that's the first time they're going to take a bite at that topic. You guys have been wrestling with that for 5 years, 10 years. So it's good to see. I always look up to the high country as like, okay, I want to be like that. And so good job, guys. Today I'm just gonna talk about two projects, and then also I've already mentioned that Emily and the Workforce Housing Agency is gonna have some time with the board when they do their annual retreat next week, the end of next week. Wow, it's next week. Are we ready? Yeah, we got this. They do an annual retreat, every year. So Pacific Crest Commons, also known as the Old Truckee CHP site, right there by Safeway. Everybody kind of been around for a while, where it was. That's where ag was years ago. So that was a surplus site. That was an RFP was put out, and Pacific Coast Communities, the developer, along with the Regional Housing Authority, got the 100-year lease of that property, and so they're working on putting in 55 units of housing. And it's going to be a full array of studios, 1, 2s, and 3s. And then it'll also bring 10 units of supportive housing for behavioral health. Supportive housing is for folks that need a little bit of support, whether it's medication or we're talking adults. But this is significant because this will be the first 10 units of housing that behavioral health has in eastern side. To put that in perspective, we have like 80 units of permanent supportive housing in western side. So when someone does need supportive housing up here, we got to find a place for them down there. So this will give us an opportunity to have that level of service and also expand behavioral health and supportive services here in the east side. So that's pretty cool. So brought a lot of renderings. The funding, building affordable housing is hard. So No Place Like Home was the first one we landed on. That gives money to build the 10 units of PSH, permanent supportive housing. Also want to point out the Martis Fund and the town of Truckee's put in $1 million each on self-financing. There was a special grant RFP process that went out called the Local Government Matching Grant Program. That's specifically for the surplus properties the state were letting go, and the developer was able to land $5 million on that. And that's important, those first 4 bullets, because that kind of raises your soft financing score, your tiebreaker score. And so they went for I won't get into tax credits, it's confusing, but there's 9% and 4% tax credits. They went for 4% in August, and they actually were invited to the awardee orientation and then uninvited because they came in like next. The one that, on the bubble that you don't get to play in the state championship. That was this project. But it's gonna open back up in here next month, and then they're gonna go for it, and they feel very confident they're gonna land the 4%, and that's what they need. Once they get all that last little piece, that fifth chunk of money, it's off to the races. Like I said, it's not cheap. Prevailing wage projects on the west side are running $900 a square foot to develop, hard construction costs. It's not fun. Hopefully the prices are dropping down, but we'll see. So I just brought a bunch of renderings in case you're not familiar with it. Basically, you can drive by. It's that ugly old building. I think it's a hazmat site too, but this is looking, the top of the page is 80, and then on the right-hand side is Donner Pass Road. So the buildings will be there. So as you're kind of looking west as the top of the page. This is kind of looking over 89 back northeast. looking from the street side. Is what I call it. This is what everybody's gonna see when they drive by. Oops, did it go? There we go. This is kind of looking to the northeast, so kind of northwest, so kind of looking back at 89. You're kind of looking over towards the hardware store is top.
Solar panels?
Yeah, everything, yes, there's solar panels, everything. Any new construction has to come with solar panels. This developer, I'm really happy with them. They did artist lofts. They've done 2 of the projects on the western side with us. They're a big dog. If you look at TCAC awardees, you'll see Pacific. I know they got there. Anyways, the Pacific companies is what their holding is listed a lot. They do a lot throughout California mostly. So this is basically the backside. There's a courtyard area, which I'll show you in a second. And this is kind of the street side again, 89 looking kind of to the east. Uh-oh, there we go. There's the courtyard. So you're kind of behind the building, kind of looking back again towards the hardware store, but through the building. It's the entrance in the courtyard area. So parking will be obviously off. You won't see a lot of parking from the street. Good textures on this. I use the architectural term textures. Yeah? Okay, good. Thumbs up. Yeah. So I don't know if you can read it, but there's going to be corrugated metal and rolled paneling. That wood grain fiber cement board's a big thing, especially on the up here's fire prone, but western side, we're using this on just about everything. Either we've gone back to stucco, hello 1960s, or onto this. I like this cement board. It's got good fire rating from the outside. You'll notice on the right-hand side there's a great room. We'll see that in the actual breakout of units. There will be the opportunity to basically reserve the great room as a meeting space, whether kind of community activities be all run through the property managers, which they have an office in there. So at some point, once it gets built, there will be a new place for our community to get together. It's kind of showing the top floor, or sorry, the first floor of this. So again, the top of the page is Highway 89. See the great room area, the office, meeting area. Excuse me. And then you go straight into units, first floor units. And I'll go over the color schemes, but basically, I'm bad at colors, but you got 1 bedrooms, you got 2 bedrooms, which is kind of in the center top, and then that's a 1 bedroom center top, and then the pink on the right is like a 2 bedroom. This is the floor above the great room. Again, you just get into units 1, 2s, and 3s. That bright pink salmon-y color, and you're like, which one? The 2 bigger ones, those are the 3-bedroom units. And the sizes will range from 400 square feet for a studio, 701 square feet for a 1 bedroom, 795 for a 2 bedroom, and 1,079 square feet for those peachy ones. That's building 1. Building 2 is the one that kind of butts up against Grocery Outlet. And so that's, just the schematic there, a little more 2 bedrooms. Got 2 more slides for you. Oops, there we go. Hobart Mills. So this is a project that's out on 89, Forest Service land. We're looking currently, I think the Workforce Housing Agency brought this to the county's attention. We're going to be diving deeper into it next week during the board retreat. It's about 50-ish acres out there. They own a whole bunch more than that. But looking primarily for seasonal housing for Forest Service staff and also workforce housing potentially. Again, problem when you get into rural is, where's the sewage gone? And there isn't any sewage connections out there, so we got to figure out a septic solution. And that's something we're working on with our partners. And then the last one is probably the most exciting thing I want to leave you guys with is this will, like I said, we got 90 minutes with the board. We're going to talk. CDA is going to have their little bit. I'm going to do all my projects I got going on, like the Crest project. But several more on the western side. And then we're going to spend Emily can have about 30 minutes with the board, talk about the Workforce Housing Agency up here, what they're doing, what their goals are, what their strategic plan is, what their needs are, and really start a conversation with the missing middle, which we haven't had with our Board of Supervisors in detail. And so that's a real neat challenge to highlight what y'all are doing out here. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mike. Wow, that's a lot of time with the Board of Supervisors, Emily. Okay, next we have Emily Vitus with the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency. And Emily is the Executive Director and going to give a rundown of what's happening in that world. Emily, it's all yours.
Thanks, Ted. Hi, everybody. Good to see all my friends in the audience. Good to speak with you all today. Really quickly before I start on this, follow up with what Mike just shared. The 27th Nevada County will be looking at kind of the housing landscape in Nevada County, Eastern, Western, the entire county. And part of that is actually introducing to them what middle income is. So we all know that in Eastern County, we have much different needs than we do in Western County. And so introducing kind of middle income, 80% plus, 80 to 120% AMI to the county, which is really exciting. In their history, they have always worked in the 80% and below. Typically, jurisdictions or entitlement agencies do. So to see everybody that is presented so far today looking beyond that 80%, looking at the 120 to 245 above, focused on locals, is really exciting. And so thank you all for being here today and presenting on all of these exciting things that are being worked on in Eastern County or the town of Truckee. So as Ted mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency. We are a joint powers authority that is made up of 7 public agencies. Next slide, please. We were founded in 2020. Conversation started in 2018, kind of came from Mountain Housing Council and what is the community doing? What are businesses doing for their employees? For our 4 founding agencies, the hospital, the airport, the school district, the utility district came together and said, what more can we do? So much is happening. Mountain Housing Council is leading all of these really innovative conversations. We're talking about solutions. What can our public agencies do for their employees? And so about a year and a half of analysis and working with legal teams and consultants, we created the Workforce Housing Agency. So founded in 2020, operations started in March of 2020, and housing operations started in July of 2020. We are currently serving 2,300 or roughly so community service professionals of those 7 member agencies. So again, hospital, airport, school district, Truckee-Donner Public Utility District, and then in 2021 we expanded to welcome the town of Truckee, Placer County, and Nevada County as members. So 7 public member agencies, 2,300 employees, and today I will be sharing, where we are, successes over the last 2.5 years, but also where we're going as an agency. We are in the final stretch of a very significant strategic redirect. My board is actually approving it tomorrow, so this is like you heard it here first on what we're hoping to do here in the next 5 years in the Truckee-Tahoe region. Next slide, please. So our board is made up of representatives from each of our 7 member agencies. We ask that all leads of these agencies, so CEOs, general managers, et cetera, are leaning into this conversation. We have a super involved board of directors and 2 staff leading the charge. So myself and our housing program manager, Jacqueline McCoy. Jacqueline is really the individual that speaks with all of our employees when they have needs, but also our workforce. We get a lot of calls from general members of our workforce. Each of those calls we treat just as they're one of our employees, and we help them with their housing challenges in the Truckee-Tahoe region. Next slide, please. So our current funding structure, when we founded the agency, we really wanted to make sure that we were being equitable with the number of employees that each member agency represents. So we represent 2,300 employees. However, 1,300 of those employees are hospital employees. So we have an employee-based member fee structure. On an annual basis, we do an employee calculation, and right now we're working under a $400,000 budget, and so it's calculated based on the number of employees served in the eastern side of things, whether it's Placer, Nevada, or town of Truckee. So we just saw this picture. We'll see a couple duplicates here in my presentation, though my presentation is not as pretty as some of the presentations we've seen today. But we do serve the 80+% workforce. That means one person, the caps for 80%, one person 55,100 in Nevada County or town of Truckee, and 4 person 78,700. So when we conducted all of our employee surveys and really looked at the makeup of our member agencies' employees, we understood that almost 90% of our employees actually make up the 80% and above workforce. It's what we refer to as the middle income workforce. And so our efforts are focused in that area. However, we do also understand the significance and the need to serve the 80% and below area median income. And so we are also, supporting our partners in that, but also pursuing ways in which we can continue to help those that make up the 80% and below workforce as well. Next slide. So how do we serve? Right now we serve kind of under 3 pillars. The first pillar is general housing support. So all of these programs that were shared today, there's a lot of questions for our community. How do we actually navigate these programs? Our jurisdictions or entitlement agencies are doing so much to implement them, but we can't also rely on them to be the entities that are doing all of the advertising, all of the education. And so someone will come to us and say, this is my household income. Can you help me understand how to navigate the Truckee-Tahoe region? I want to buy a home. Can I actually afford to buy a home? I need a rental. What kind of rental can I afford? And so we're providing that foundational education about how to access and afford housing in the Truckee-Tahoe region. And again, especially with our general housing support, we are serving anybody that comes to us. It doesn't matter if you're an employee of one of our member agencies. If you call or email the housing agency, we're going to help you work through the process of understanding the Truckee-Tahoe landscape. The second pillar is related to home purchase. We now call this home purchase navigation. Again, if you're above 80% area median income, if you're one of our employees, you're oftentimes further along in your career, or you're starting to build a family, you are considered a professional of sorts. Most people want to buy a home. Doesn't mean that everyone here can buy a home, but how can we help those that can, that do have that household income that allows them to navigate? So again, education on home purchase navigation, but also implementation of programs such as the home purchase program that we just implemented for the hospital last week, helping employees to actually afford and access homes for purchase for hospital employees. So really helping again on that whole kind of gamut of home purchase. And then finally, access to rental homes. So we heard about the Lease to Locals programs today. There are homeowners that cannot qualify for those programs. Oftentimes a homeowner will call us and say, we just lost our tenant. Maybe they bought their first home. Awesome. Well, let's make sure that we can find you a tenant for those homes. And so up until the end of 2022, those rental homes were only available to member agency employees. However, we realized quickly that 2,300 employees with a community of like 17,000 plus members of our workforce is not a big enough pool to actually fill those units that come available. And so we have implemented a tiered system so that now that these homes, when they're not filled by our member agency employees, we can actually go out to the general workforce and say, who is interested in this home? We don't have AMI caps. We have a pipeline of individuals outside of our member agency employees we're able to place in those homes. So we do all of the tenant vetting and placement for those, whether you're a member agency employee or not. Just quickly, a couple of our numbers. Again, my slides are not as pretty as some of the others we've seen today, but we have helped almost 300 people on their housing journeys over the last 2.5 years. I'm particularly proud of the bottom line. Again, we all know home purchase means that you are able to stay here, which means your employer is able to keep you as an employee for the most part, right? And so being able to help people make their first home purchase or purchase a home in the Truckee-Tahoe region is something that I feel really, really proud of. It's a big win when this happens among our team, but all of these wins are big, right? So even when we can help somebody complete an application for Frischman Hollow, that is a big win. And so again, the whole gamut of accessing housing through the Workforce Housing Agency. Next slide. So, lots of good stuff has happened in the last 2.5 or almost 3 years since we founded. However, we did found at the beginning of a pandemic. So things have shifted drastically for our community. We were all seeing it. We all feel it. How can the Workforce Housing Agency look within ourselves to see how we can better serve our community, of which our member agency employees are a component of? So in 2022, we entered into a 9-month strategic planning process. From our first workshop came this graphic. This graphic isn't anything groundbreaking. This is really kind of how we founded the agency to operate. However, we realized that we didn't found the agency to actually unlock significant dollars to be able to pursue things like development, acquisition, substantial programs. And so how do we re-envision ourselves to actually be able to do those things? So specifically focused on the top 2 areas, the funding of development and acquisition of middle-income housing and the production of development or of housing utilizing publicly owned land or private partnerships. So we entered into then a 6-month period to really focus on those top 2 areas. How do we actually impact those top 2 areas? Next slide, please, thanks. So we've got some really lofty targets. Again, this is what my board is looking to approve tomorrow. We are meeting at the Truckee Tahoe Airport Conference Rooms at 8:30 a.m. for my board to consider approval of our strategic plan. It's a 5-year plan. You're all welcome to join if you'd like. So our strategic plan targets, again, big and lofty. We have 6 targets and 5 goals to meet those targets over the next 5 years. I know that we don't have a ton of time, so I'm just going to focus on 2 things specifically. The top number, how do we unlock $10 million in new public agency funding to accelerate workforce housing solutions? And number 5, how do we expand our program so that we can still honor our mission of serving member agency employees while looking beyond ourselves and making sure that we're also showing up for the rest of our workforce? In between there is a lot of facilitation of development, incentivizing development, actually acquiring units for our workforce's use, and then really starting to look at the state advocacy side of things to make sure that at the state level they're really focused on middle income housing. Okay, big slide. Again, don't have a ton of time. Happy to have this conversation with anybody. This will be on our website once it's approved. I want to focus on number 1. I just mentioned $10 million in public agency funding. How do we unlock those dollars? How do we actually unlock significant dollars so we can move towards development and acquisition of housing for our workforce? We are proposing the creation of a 501c3 workforce housing fund that will serve the Truckee Tahoe region beyond our member agency employees, so anybody that is qualified in that middle income category. That 501c3 fund will be focused on a revolving loan fund for development that is serving the needs of our community middle income. It is focused on acquisition of existing housing. We've all seen those from out of the area come in and buy single and multifamily homes over the last many years that our locals can no longer access. So our focus will first start with multifamily. How do we make sure when an 8-unit complex comes up in Kings Beach or Tahoe Donner that we're able to secure it for our workforce and keep the people that are in it if they're local members of our workforce, and also be able to move local members of our workforce into those units. And then also an accelerator fund. So again, at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of this mission, we have our member agency employees. How do we make sure we're still serving them? So this accelerator fund actually takes dollars that we have secured over the last 3 years, takes member agency dollars focused on their own employees' needs and initiatives, and accelerates those opportunities as well. Again, facilitation of development, acquisition of existing properties, both of those fall underneath the creation of that 501c3. And then, as I mentioned, expanding housing programs. So we're serving our employees, but we're also serving those beyond our employees. Really quickly, just wanted to show you all, some people are visual learners, but how do we shift our models so that we can serve our own in a better way and serve more of our workforce? And so just as I mentioned, the 501c3 creation, the accelerator fund creation, and the workforce housing administering, all of those pursuits facilitating development, facilitating purchase of existing units. And then finally, this is really lofty, right? So it can't just be us. We're going to be asking our community partners and our community members to participate. We will have committees being created to focus on the creation of the 501c3 housing fund, to focus on how we actually pursue development, to focus on the acquisition of units. We need lending experts. We need financial experts. So if there's interest in participating, please reach out to me. And please sign up for our e-news, because everything I shared today, we're also sharing through there, and all updates will come through there as well. All right, marathon done. Thank you all very much.
Emily touched on it, but having been involved in the Workforce Housing Agency from the beginning, many of the assumptions that went into the development of that program originally were completely upended by the pandemic. And so you've done an excellent job, you, Jacqueline, and the board, in pivoting and trying to adjust to a really rapid changing environment. So my hat's off to you guys. Our next speaker is Alfred Knotts. Alfred's going to give us an update on TART and TART Connect, which is the Winter Micro Transit Pilot Program. Love that program, by the way. Can you come out to Sierraville? That would really make me happy. You're up.
You mention that every time, Ted. Thank you and good morning. Alfred Knotts with the town of Truckee. Very exciting to be here to hear about all the exciting stuff that's going on. These are obviously regional issues that require regional solutions. So hearing Emily and Mike and Crystal and Lynn talk about all these great things. It's an exciting time in the community that are going to continue to be challenges, and transportation is one of those also. So what I do want to do is give an overview of the TARC Connect services. That's fine. Go to the next slide. So as many of you probably have seen or heard, at least the service that Placer County had been providing when I talk about the regional solutions, we do operate our fixed route service and all of our TART system that you see out on a daily basis in partnership with Placer County. The TART Connect pilot program, which is a microtransit program, and that term is really just what it says. It's a little different than mass transit. It's microtransit, using smaller vehicles to carry a smaller group of people on an on-demand system. So we had a summer pilot, but we've implemented our winter pilot, and that's been operating since December 15th, and it will operate until April 2nd. Or April 5th, sorry. And the hours of operation until 8 in the morning until 10 at night. So that is an app. So there's some QR codes and some brochures out back on the table to download. And that is an app that you put on your phone. And you can book an on-demand ride. So it will come door to door, curb to curb. You pick the amount of people you have in your vehicle or within your party. And it will take you to your destination. Now, as of right now, we don't serve the whole town, so I want to be clear about that. We do serve Tahoe Donner. We serve the commercial core Donner Pass road area, out to Glenshire, and also the Brockway kind of corridor. And again, the downtown area and kind of gateway area. But we also added the West River area. We added some areas over by Alder Creek Middle School and some of the affordable housing units over there as well. And this is kind of because of the funding model that we have and the eligible uses of the funds. But as we go through the pilot program, we're going to evaluate, what the sustainability of the program and look at that providing at a town-wide basis. So how do you use TARC Connect? Again, you download the app. We do have other opportunities for people that don't have smartphones. You can call a dispatcher. You can also go online and download and look at the information as well, and kind of figure out how to your locations and to book the app. Or to book the ride. You set up your account. You don't have to put too much personal information in there, but you do have to put your destination there and where you want to go. You can track your arrival times too. So there has been a lot of times there's been a lot of longer durations than we had planned in terms of booking the ride over the holiday period due to snow. And other congestion issues as well, which is kind of ironic, obviously. But there is the ability to track your time, when your ride will arrive, and how long it will take you to get to your destination. There's also a survey on there as well, so I would encourage everyone to use the survey or fill out the survey. Again, this is not a unique identifier to your information, but it does tell us who's using the system so we can better use it as a planning tool. In the future, as we looked at the amount of vehicles we need, the hours of the day, the trip purposes. What we have seen is we've seen about 300 rides per day. So to put that on in comparison with our transit system, we carry about 90 rides on our other system. So we're carrying about 3 times the amount of people we did on our other transit system, which currently still operates. And so it's been very, very encouraging that we've tapped into a new market also. We've seen a lot of locals use it, and about 50% of the people using it are locals. So that's very encouraging. But again, we use this information as the surveys come back to us. It is free, so free to the rider. So I want to be clear that it is 100% subsidy, so it's not necessarily free in terms of a government subsidy point of view, but it is fare free. So another way to enjoy Truckee, the night on the town. Kind of going back to the housing component, the number 2 expenditure within a household, aside from housing, is transportation. So again, this puts more money in people's pockets, more discretionary spending that goes back into our economy. So people aren't just trying to spend to get to work and get home from work, where sometimes that can be at $10. You can work for an hour just to try to get to pay for yourself to get to and from work. So something to take into account. So again, download the app. But don't want to, next slide, that's fine. Don't want to gloss over or make you gloss over this ridership information, but this does show our spikes here throughout the information or that we gathered through the initial pilot period for the first 2 weeks. We did see a lot of spikes within those holiday periods, but again, we're seeing time of day, and we're looking at this to make informed decisions in the future. When do we need to extend service? When do we need to start service sooner? Right now we're seeing rides at 50 passengers at the 8 o'clock hour. So that's telling us maybe we need to start at 7. Maybe we need to shift a little hours in the evening and things like that. So again, this information is very valuable. But what it is showing us is we're really tapping into a market, and what we're trying to do is really change our culture within the town, how we move about the town, that we're not always getting in our private automobiles. And we're also looking at an e-bike share program this summer as well. So you'll see all of these initiatives come together and really create a multimodal system where you have other options besides jumping into your car. So what I would like to do is thank our partners also. This really did take a village, and the village is up there. This is we looked at that partners to contribute to the program in the airport district. The town stepped up, obviously the council, Visit Truckee Tahoe, Tahoe Donner, our Glenshire, and then also our Placer County folks as well, helping with the system, and then the Tahoe Forest Hospital was a big contributor also. So again, you don't necessarily just need to make a trip-to-trip, curb-to-curb type of trip. You can also feed into our larger system. You want to go to the resorts, take TART Connect to the depot, and then you can jump on one of the mass transit buses that can take you down the 89 corridor and 267 and all the way into Lake Tahoe and back again without having to get in your private automobile, so or pay for parking at night too. So there's a lot of benefits to using TART Connect. So I think that was my last slide. Yes. Thank you.
I would imagine DUI count goes down for Truckee PD as well. Do you have stats on that, Alfred? Not yet? I'll come back at you on that one. Okay, we're running a little low on time, so I'm going to ask the speakers to stick around for those of you that might want to get with them and ask some questions. However, I know that it's very important. Some folks have stump speeches, things like pickleball. Stump speeches? I already did it for you? Perfect. Okay, with that, we'll move to the door prizes. Okay, we got a bunch here. But I would like to announce that on February 8th, there is a mixer. It's a block party kind of a thing at Alpenglow Gallery, Lorian Powers Jewelry, and Grizzly Menswear. So keep that on the calendar, February 8th. Okay, you ready? Lizzie, let's make it fair. Keep it, that would serve no purpose. Okay, 529-857, and this is for a C's Candy prize. Oh, perfect. It's a C's Candy. That works out really well.
That's it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're a winner. Thank you very much. Okay, and this one, this one's my favorite. This is a Truckee Zoom kit for Zoom meetings. It has a cup that says this might just be wine. There's a bottle of liquor there. When you see people's picture click off for just a second, and then they come back. Okay, the Truckee Zoom kit, 529-828. 828. Wow, okay. I'm dying to see who wins this because I'll be watching on Zoom. 529-822. Oh, there we go. We have a winner. Put it to good use, sir.
Breakfast Club.
And the next prize is a Truckee sweatshirt. Everyone needs one. 529-855. That's a cool sweatshirt. We have a winner. No more calls, please. Okay, next prize. This is the big one. A ticket to Good Morning Truckee. 529-827. 827. No one? Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to save a little time. This is the one with the folded corner. 529843. 843, and we have a winner. And the next one, and unlike Mr. Porter, I'm not going to put it on and defile this gift. Okay. But it is a Truckee, California hat. It's a good hat. 529836. And we have a winner in the back. Thank you very much. And that concludes Truckee. Good morning, Truckee. Thank you all for attending. It's been difficult travel, so it says a lot to have a full room. My hat's off to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.